So I am responding to the major claim that states that the current grading system has a negative impact on the students, which is by Megan Hahn. Megan's secondary claims are that the current grading system creates a negative learning environment, the current grading system discourages learning, and the current grading system equates negative character building. So in response to her first secondary claim that states that the current grading system creates a negative learning environment, I have 4 responses. She states that under the current system, students only think about what they need to study in order to not fail, instead of actually learning the topic in order to avoid being humiliated when they receive a grade. However, when a student studies, they learn once again what has already been enforced in class or through their textbook, reinforcing the concept that they have already learned. So you cannot study without actually learning the material first. In addition to that, she stated that students can be humiliated when they receive their low grade. However, humiliation is only possible if a student's grade is revealed to a person other than that student who received the grade. And under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, elementary, middle, and high school students' grades are not allowed to be revealed to anyone other than their family members or themselves. In addition to that, in college, your grade is not allowed to be discussed with anybody else other than you and your professor unless you decide to discuss with anybody else. If your family member tries to call up a professor to try and get your grade, they cannot do that. It's illegal for the professor to actually be revealing their grade to anybody else in the United States. Megan also stated that the current grading system creates stress among students in the form of competition among students for high marks. However, one student getting an A does not make one student getting an A on exam does not preclude the other students from also receiving an A. If you are in a study group with someone, you are going to be helping each other try and get high marks. You're not going to be causing the other student to get lower marks just so you can get the higher marks. One of her sources for this secondary claim is from a survey put on by the University of Cape Town, which is actually a university in South Africa. Therefore, she's trying to compare with a grading system from South Africa, which cannot be compared to the United States. You cannot be comparing grading systems throughout different countries because each grading system is different in different countries. So in response to her secondary claim, which states that the current grading system discourages learning, I have 2 responses. Megan states that the students will focus on getting an A instead of fully comprehending the material. And that's because of this, there will be an increase of cheating, which will detract from the learning experience. However, getting an A and being able to comprehend material are not opposed to each other. They are actually equivalent of each other. If you are getting an A, you are comprehending the material. You cannot ace a test unless you know what is being asked and what you have to answer. In addition to this, the people who are cheating are more likely don't even want to be in school, especially if you're in elementary school. You're just there to get by, elementary through high school, you're just there to get by, and you just need to be passing this class until you are old enough to no longer be able to go to school anymore. And so these people who are cheating don't actually want to pass the class, they just want to be able to continue on until they don't have to continue on anymore. So in response to her third secondary claim, which states that the current grading system equates negative character building, I have 4 responses. Megan gives her a quote from a blog post on a website called Communicate Magazine with a Q, claiming that it is a quote from a student from Cambridge University. However, the quote is by a writer who is interviewing this person from Cambridge University, and even then, she's not interviewing this person in order to understand why she has negative character building. Instead, she is interviewing this person because her blog post is about how the students at Cambridge University has a petition going on in order to request that the practice of publicly posting exam results next to students' names should be ended. She's interviewing the student who has put their name down to petition for this. In addition to that, Cambridge University is in the United Kingdom. And again, you cannot compare the United Kingdom with the US. We do not have similar grading systems, which can be shown by internationalstudent.com. The reason why United States and United Kingdom is different is because the US system emphasizes breadth, courses require weekly or even bi-weekly readings, as well as other assignments such as small writing projects, major research papers, and oral presentations throughout the course, whereas in the United Kingdom, they mostly focus on lectures for their grading. In addition to this, she gave another quote from Source of Information, which is a report focusing on New Zealand education system, which again, New Zealand education system cannot be compared to the United States education system, and you cannot show the negative character building in New Zealand is equivalent to the United States because we have different grading systems. We have different ways of learning. And in addition to that, that report was actually written over almost a decade ago in 2008, and education tends to change. Education is fluid and it changes with each year and as people begin to learn new ways of being able to educate others. So you cannot compare something within 10 years. As a matter of fact, for elementary school, for example, Common Core was implemented less than 9 years ago, which means that even then it has been, the education system has changed between the past decade or two. So in conclusion, Megan mostly mentions the effects of grading systems in other countries, which you cannot compare to each other or even to the United States due to the fact that each country has their own grading system. Thank you.
All right, the structural stuff is pretty good, although you do have a lot of the secondary claims. Each time, you know, like on the first point you said, I got 4 responses to that particular point, but then there are actually 4 points that the advocate made, and you had a response to each of those points, and so it got a little bit confusing there. But ultimately, you had claims on all of those points, and that helps quite a bit. And I liked some of the arguments that you made. The premise on the first point is that the humiliation only exists if other people know the grade. I'm not sure that that's the only way in which it occurs, but since that's your assertion, I do think the follow-up that you have that suggests that they can't release this information to other people was pretty solid. By the way, that would also apply when you talk about that evidence on the third point, where, you know, at Cambridge University they're objecting to this particular issue. You could point out again, as you said on the first point, that can't happen here because it's a violation of law, which is, by the way, an additional explanation of what is different between the school systems and the grading systems that are being utilized there. So I think that you've got a good point there, and that you could get a little bit more use out of it later in the presentation. You know, the idea that you know, getting an A doesn't automatically preclude other people from getting the grade, and study groups help each other, that's, you know, basic assertion. There's no evidence on this particular point. I think it's a reasonable press to make on this. It would be nice if you had some information, for instance, that talked about how collaborative learning is used more extensively, and how this notion of it being competitive is really not an accurate description of what's going on in most education systems today. There's a whole bunch of stuff in academic literature about education that talks about how collaboration is so damn important, and how the system has really changed a great deal to emphasize that kind of thing. Your criticism about the evidence coming from other countries and their researchers dealing with other school systems, I think that's a reasonable press to make. I think one of the things that you might want to point out is that the advocate never specified exactly what the education system that they are arguing about consists of. You're mostly assuming that it's the American educational system. I think that's a reasonable assumption given the issues that the advocate talked about, but it does seem a little bit problematic when their evidence has come from all these other places too. Let's see. On the second point, on the idea that the kids only cheat because they have to be there and they're just trying to get by. That's all an assertion there. I think a little research would have probably helped you on this particular point. There's some information here that would be helpful for you. And then we're on the third point, we're back to the same issue. I thought that you had the right kinds of responses here. You spent a little bit more time focusing on, that, well, it wasn't really a quote, it was the quote of a quote by the writer doing a blog post. I'm going, okay, there's a little bit of hair splitting that's going on there. The better argument, I think, is that the whole issue there was about doing something that we can't even do here. And as a result, this notion that it's being quoted out of context, that to me seems like it's the better argument. All right, thank you.